From Shashi Tharoor's egg on my face remark to police's action in Nagpur violence case and fresh violence in Manipur, let's get to all the big stories of the day in this news wrap. Hi, I'm Khyati Rajvanshi and you're watching the Indian Express. Let's get started. In today's top political news, a controversy erupted over Shashi Tharoor's latest remarks. The senior Congress leader and former diplomat admitted he has egg on my face for previously criticizing India's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue in New Delhi on March 18th, Tharoor reflected on his 2022 comments where he had condemned India's neutral position and called for a stronger stance against Russia's aggression. Listen to what he had to say.
There's one person in the parliamentary debate who actually criticized the Indian position at the time, back in February 22, on the well-worn grounds that Espen will understand, because he and I talked about all this in my UN days, that there was a violation of the UN Charter, that there had been a violation of the principle of the inviolability of borders, of the sovereignty of a member state, namely Ukraine, and we had always stood for the inadmissibility of the use of force to settle international disputes. And all of those principles, I said, had been violated by one party and we should have condemned it. Well, a couple of years later, 3 years later, it does look like I'm the one with egg on my face, because clearly the policy has meant that India has actually a prime minister who can hug both the president of Ukraine and the president of Moscow 2 weeks apart and be accepted in both places. And therefore, India is in a position where it can make a difference to a lasting peace, if it was so required, in ways that very few countries would be able to. And it's partially, I mean, again, going back to some of the things that Stephen Harper and Espen said, distance helps. The fact that we're not in Europe and we're not directly, one way or the other, threatened or benefiting from any change in territorial borders, for example, that helps. The fact that the two parties seem to be ready to agree to peace. The fact that there would presumably be some very serious international backing for an international peacekeeping venture. I mean, all of those things have to be borne in mind before you answer the question that you just asked, Yella. As an Indian government a person making such a decision, those considerations would really have to be uppermost before they say yes or no. But I can see it entirely possible that in these circumstances, India would say yes. Remember, India's got 250,000 peacekeepers in its history around the world. It's participated in, God knows, 49 peacekeeping missions, I think, in its history. So this is a country with an extensive record of having gone out to places far removed from India's direct interests in order to serve the cause of peace.
In a major development in the Nagpur violence case, 8 workers from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, VHP, and Bajrang Dal surrendered to Kotwali police on March 19th. The unrest stems from protests over the removal of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb's tomb, with FIRs filed against the accused for inciting violence and hurting religious sentiments. Meanwhile, the Judicial Magistrate First Class JMFC Court has remanded 19 accused to police custody until March 21st. According to the FIR, the accused also misbehaved with women, including police personnel, during the clashes that erupted on March 17 and lasted for over 7 hours.
लोगों से कि क्या सिचुएशन उनको क्या लग रहा है और इसमें हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन जो हो रही है उस इन्वेस्टिगेशन में सब सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं और हमारे सभी वरिष्ठ अधिकारी यहाँ पे आके बात कर रहे हैं उनसे। और क्योंकि ये जो लास्ट पॉइंट था जहाँ पे घटना हुई, शुरुआत जहाँ से हुई थी वहां से, तो वही कि यहाँ तक कैसे और कौन इन्वॉल्व थे इसमें, कुछ जो बता रहे हैं कि सीसीटीवी कैमरास, वही हम देख रहे हैं कि कौन से सीसीटीवी कैमरास को क्षति पहुंचाएगी जानबूझ के, ये सारी चीजें हम लोग कर रहे हैं।
सर, कर्फ्यू चल रहा है, कर्फ्यू में कुछ रियायत देने की
वो हम देख रहे हैं, जो ये सब चीजों के आधार पे निर्णय उसमें लिया जाएगा।
सर, कहा जा रहा है कि इस पूरी घटना का मास्टरमाइंड अरेस्ट हुआ है, इसकी पुष्टि करेंगे?
वही हम लोग चेक कर रहे हैं कि क्या रोल था उस इंसान का, उसने कैसे शुरुआत से उसकी भूमिका रही, कहाँ पे उसने बोला, ये सब चीजें, ये सारी चीजें हम लोग कर रहे हैं।
कितने आरोपियों को अरेस्ट किया है?
अभी तक 50 जो है मेजर हैं और 7 उसमें माइनर हैं और उन्हीं के वो जो है अभी तक अरेस्ट है। कुछ लोग आज भी अरेस्ट हुए हैं, वो मैं आपको शाम को बताऊंगा।
महिला पुलिसों के साथ अभद्रता की कोशिश, FIR में वो सब चीजें भी आई है, किस तरीके से आप इसे इन्वेस्टिगेट करें, क्या पूरा मामला?
इसमें सभी चीजें, क्योंकि जो पार्ट ऑफ इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, जो पार्ट ऑफ रिकॉर्ड है, उसके आधार पर हम लोग कर रहे हैं। जिसने भी ये शरारत की है, जिसने भी ये इलीगल घटना की है, उसके वो खिलाफ एक्शन लिया
एक
जाएगा।
आखिरी सवाल, जो मास्टरमाइंड है उसका पुराना कुछ रिकॉर्ड आपके सामने आया क्या?
देखिए वो हम देख रहे हैं, अभी मैं बता नहीं पाऊंगा उसको।
India on Wednesday expressed deep concern over the escalating crisis in Gaza following Israel's recent airstrikes that claimed over 400 Palestinian lives. In an official statement, the Ministry of External Affairs emphasized the urgent need for the release of all hostages and the uninterrupted supply of humanitarian aid to the region. The statement reiterated India's consistent stand on providing sustained assistance to Gaza's affected population. We are concerned about the situation in Gaza. It is important that all hostages are released and humanitarian aid continues to reach those in need, the MEA said. Here's a report on this. India on Wednesday expressed deep concern over the worsening situation in Gaza, a day after Israel launched fresh airstrikes across the region, killing more than 400 Palestinians. In a statement, the Ministry of External Affairs called for the immediate release of all hostages and the continuous supply of humanitarian aid. The statement read, and I quote, "We are concerned at the situation in Gaza. It is important that all hostages are released. We also call for the supply of humanitarian assistance to be sustained." End quote. The statement was also shared by MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal on social media, underlining India's consistent position that diplomacy and dialogue are essential for resolving the crisis. New Delhi has repeatedly called for a ceasefire and had earlier condemned the October 7 terror attacks by Hamas, while also emphasizing the need for humanitarian aid to support civilians in Gaza. Meanwhile, the situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. On Tuesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered fresh airstrikes, stating that these attacks were only the beginning. He further asserted that future negotiations with Hamas will take place only under fire. The renewed offensive comes after Hamas rejected proposals for an extension of the ceasefire, which had been in place since January. The ceasefire deal initially saw Hamas release 33 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals in exchange for around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. However, negotiations over the remaining 59 Israeli hostages have stalled. Hamas has demanded a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, while Israel has refused to accept that condition. With diplomatic efforts failing, the ceasefire appears to be unraveling. The White House confirmed it was consulted before the strikes and has expressed support for Israel's actions. As tensions rise, the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains dire, with calls for urgent international intervention growing louder. A 53-year-old man was killed in Manipur's Churachandpur late Tuesday night as fresh violence erupted in the Kuki-Zo-dominated district, which has been tense following an ethnic clash on Monday. The unrest reignited around 7 p.m. when Laro Pui Pakhumate, a member of the Remark community, sustained a bullet injury during a confrontation over a Zomi group hoisting its community flag near Selmat Bridge. As tensions escalated, mobs vandalized property, prompting security forces to use tear gas and fire live rounds in the air. Police reported that militants exploited the chaos and opened fire. Pakumate was rushed to Selmat Christian Hospital, where he was declared dead. The district had already been on high alert after Monday's clashes, triggered by an alleged assault on a Himar community leader, which led authorities to impose prohibitory orders. In response to the violence, the Zomi Students Federation on Wednesday called for a suspension of all activities, including the closure of schools, colleges, shops, and businesses until normalcy is restored. That's all for the day, but leaving you with the moment when astronaut Sunita Williams set foot on Earth.